Hello everyone. So in this video I am going to explain how to create a schedule trigger in Synapse or Azure Data Factory. So the step is very simple. Let's click on plus new. Here we need to give any specific name, or we can give some proper description related to trigger, like how frequently, for what purpose we are creating this trigger. After that, we have to decide what kind of trigger we want to create. So in this video we are going to explain schedule trigger. Then in another videos I will explain tumbling window, storage event and custom events. Next is start date. Okay, so we have option to pick any start date, so that will be either present or a future date. So let's take 1 June for me, because today is 31st May. Now we have option to select our time zone. Now again, how frequently we want to we want to execute this trigger. So here we have an option to select either 1 2 3. We can take any number, and then we have an option like minute, hour, day. So I want hour. Okay, every 1 hour I want to execute this trigger. Okay, now I have option to specify an end date. So I am going to specify end date 8 June. So what will happen, this trigger will execute on every 1 hour till 8 of June. Next is start trigger. So when we click, when we mark this, what will happen, when after marking this, when we publish the trigger, this trigger will be in the start state. Okay, so trigger will start to execute on every 1 hour. We don't need to change the status of this. Okay, if we don't mark this, then after creation of trigger we need to change the status. Okay, let me show you. I am just creating without marking this. Okay, so we can see this trigger created, but the status is stop. Okay, so same thing, if we mark if I would have marked there, then we may see the status is started. Okay, 1 minute, hold on. Manage, I just click somewhere. We can see the status is stop. Okay, now if we click here, we can change the status. Okay, now it is started. So this trigger is going to run on every 1 hour. Okay, so the thing is, what this trigger will do. So this trigger is going to execute some pipeline, like any kind of pipelines, or can say any data flow. So how can we associate this trigger to any of the pipeline? This is very simple. Let's click on integrate and then pipeline script. Okay, so click on add trigger. Okay, now, so we have created one trigger 1. So I just assigned this, and we can see the same configuration we had, and status we changed the later. So it is currently now started. Okay, so okay, so now we can see the number is 1. It means we assigned that trigger to this pipeline. So this what will that trigger do? This the new trigger we created is going to run this pipeline on every 1 hour. So this is the use of trigger. We can create a trigger and we can assign that trigger to any of the pipeline. So what trigger will do? Trigger will execute the pipeline on every 1 hour. Another thing is like the name of trigger was trigger 1. So that trigger I can assign to any number of pipelines, any of the pipeline. So there is some limitation, exactly I don't have remember, like I think 400 or 500 we can assign that trigger to 400 or 500 pipelines. I believe there is some limitation. Okay, so I just created trigger 1 time, and the same trigger I can assign to any of the pipeline if we have a similar requirement. Like I clicked on pipeline 2. Okay, so 1 minute, pipeline 1. So we can see here we don't have any trigger because not seeing any value. But when I click on pipeline script, we can see 1. It means we assign one trigger. Again come here and see here, we can do one thing. Either we can create a trigger for this pipeline, or we can again reuse the trigger. Okay, choose trigger 1. Okay, just assign this. Okay, now we can see 1. It means this is also going to run on every 1 hour. Okay, this will run on every 1 hour, this pipeline, because we just related this pipeline with the trigger that will execute on every 1 hour. So this was the one way to create a trigger. Another way, instead of creating a trigger from manage section, we can create a trigger from any of the pipeline. So let's click on pipeline, go to the 3. Okay, add trigger, new. So instead of selecting the existing trigger, we can create a new trigger. Okay, so entirely new configuration we can provide. And what will happen, default this trigger will be assigned to this pipeline 3. Okay, and again the newly created trigger called trigger 2 we can use in any of the pipeline. Okay, so let's give the name pipe 3 trigger. Okay, so default this trigger will be assigned to pipeline 3, and whatever we have to decide the configuration. So let's give 2 hour. Okay, and start trigger on creation already marked. It means we don't need to change the status after creation of trigger. Simply this will be in start state. Okay, and let's click on OK. So we can see the value 1. It means default that newly created trigger related with this pipeline 3. Means pipeline 3 is will be executed on every 2 hour. Okay, and the new trigger we can see again in manage. We can see this is the new trigger. Okay, and again this trigger we can assign to any of the pipeline. Okay, so we can create a trigger at 2 places. One is at the manage section, another is at the pipeline. Okay, and we have an option to stop the trigger. We can click here and stop the trigger, and if we don't need, we can delete the trigger also. So this is all about how to create a schedule trigger. So in next video I will explain how to create a tumbling window trigger. Thank you.